Bonsoir camarades. Je vais parler en français pour la traduction. Merci à tous et à toutes pour votre assistante à ce plénière de logement. Mais juste avant de commencer, je voulais donner la parole à Vladimir Simovic de la Serbie de Solidarność. Je crois que c'est un moment important pour les camarades de la Serbie et je voulais lui donner la parole. Vladimir.
Okay. Comrades, friends, a year ago in Novi Sad, the canopy of a newly renovated railway station collapsed, killing 16 people. It was not an accident. It was the product of corruption, of a system where profit comes before people and where human lives are sacrificed for contracts and political gain. Out of that tragedy rose something that Serbia had not seen for years, a student-led movement joined by workers, teachers, farmers, and citizens across the country. From Belgrade to Novi Pazar, from big cities to forgotten villages, people took the streets. In a society long divided by nationalism and fear, they built something profoundly new, solidarity. And today, at this very moment, in the city of Novi Sad, more than 100,000 people are gathered, demanding justice for the victims. It is one of the largest demonstrations Serbia has ever witnessed. The call for accountability has become a call for democracy itself. For nearly a year, these protests have continued despite violence and repression. Citizens have been beaten, detained, and called terrorists. Yet they persist, because they know the justice for 16 victims is also justice for an entire society captured by corruption and authoritarian rule. The struggle in Serbia is not only about one tragedy or one government. It is about reclaiming democracy from authoritarianism, public good from private greed, and solidarity from the politics of division. Let us stand with them, not as observers, but as comrades. When the people of Novi Sad, Belgrade, or Novi Pazar rise against corruption and violence, they defend the same values as the left across Europe share: social justice, equality, and the right to live with dignity. Now I ask you all, let us honor the 16 lives lost and the thousands still fighting for a free and democratic Serbia. Let us stand together for a minute of silence. Slava im. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Vladimir. Aujourd'hui, on a la plénière de logement. Je veux faire simplement la modération. Aujourd'hui, donc, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Aujourd'hui, on va parler des problèmes des logements en Europe et aussi dans plusieurs des pays. On a des camarades d'Autriche, aussi des camarades de la jeunesse du Parti à la gauche européenne et aussi de la jeunesse d'Izquierda Unida et des camarades des mouvements sociaux en Espagne aussi, Enrique. L'objectif de cette session est double. En premier lieu, on veut dresser un petit diagnostic, une situation sur la gravité de la crise du logement, qui est vraiment une crise humanitaire qui traverse notre continent. Et en deuxième lieu, on veut partager et construire avec les camarades qui sont aujourd'hui, et avec vous tous, et toutes des alternatives et des propositions qui émergent de la gauche et des mouvements sociaux et des syndicats aussi dans toute l'Europe. C'est pour cela qu'on a structuré le débat en 2 blocs principaux et nous terminerons en vous donnant la parole à toutes et à tous pour la participation à la fin. Donc simplement, je vais faire un petit cadre au niveau européen pour avoir les données et je vais passer la parole tout de suite aux intervenants. Au niveau de la crise au niveau européen, il faut savoir que l'augmentation généralisée des prix, on parle de cette année en 2025 de plus de 6%, bon 5% et demi par an d'augmentation des prix, une tension maximale dans les foyers, la moyenne des réalités, bon, la moyenne dans les pays cache un peu cette réalité, mais par exemple dans les pays comme le Portugal, on a dans les foyers une tension maximale de plus de 17%, en Bulgarie 15%, en Hongrie 15% et même en Espagne avec un 12%, plus d'un 12%. La crise de l'accessibilité financière à long terme, si l'on regarde depuis 2010, le prix de l'immobilier dans l'Union européenne a augmenté plus de 60% et bien au-dessus de la hausse des loyers. Donc évidemment la situation n'est pas facile. Et finalement le coût humain, cette dynamique de marché a un impact direct sur la vie des gens. En 2023, 9% de la population de l'Union européenne consacrait plus de 45% de son revenu disponible aux frais de logement. On pourrait mettre des exemples dans tous les pays d'Europe, mais c'est une situation, comme je vous dis, c'est une moyenne qui cache des réalités dramatiques dans chacun des pays. Donc face à cette réalité et l'absence de réponse, non seulement des gouvernements nationaux, mais aussi de l'Union européenne, parfois on a un débat que nous on dit qui est faux, qui est un débat des compétences. Mais ce n'est pas un débat de compétences, c'est un débat des droits, et c'est un débat de droits humains. Et c'est là où on a essayé d'établir la campagne du logement du Parti de la gauche européenne, parce qu'on défend le logement comme un droit, pas comme un privilège ou pas comme un élément du marché. Donc voilà, ça c'est un peu l'introduction. Pour la présentation, les camarades qui vont intervenir, je vais vite les présenter. On a Christian Fölzer, secrétaire international pour la construction sociale, ici à l'OGB, en Autriche. Merci beaucoup et bon, merci pour nous accueillir chez vous. Après, on aura Sandra Bernad, qui a été jusqu'à aujourd'hui la co-coordinatrice des jeunes du parti du network, du réseau de gauche, des jeunes de gauche en Europe, et qui a laissé le relais à d'autres camarades aujourd'hui. On a aussi Christoph du Parti communiste d'Autriche, juste ici à côté de moi, à ma droite, et Enrique Villalobos, qui est le responsable du logement et de l'urbanisme de la Fédération régionale des associations de voisins de Madrid. Je laisse la parole donc à Christian Fölzer. Merci.
Hello to everybody. I'm Christian Fölzer. I'm the head of the international department of the trade unions for bricklayers and woodworkers in Austria. And why I'm here is the following. The trade union, our trade union, has in its hand 4 companies dealing with housing. 2 of those 4 companies are in the social sector, and 2 of these are in the private sector. And I'm in the supervisory board of all of them. And in one of those, in the so-called GEWOC, I'm the head of the supervisory board. So we deal this for about, not I only, but we as trade unionists deal this since the 50s. I'm a member of the board since 2013, so for more than 12 years now. First of all, I come back to 5 minutes ago, we heard something about Serbia, and I have to say that we as trade unionists in Austria, we as trade unionists from the bricklayers and woodworkers deal with our colleagues in Serbia because Austrian firms are in Serbia, they're present there, and we as trade unionists are looking for the collective agreements there. So we have close contact with them, and we also discuss political things. And from time to time, I'm in Serbia for the last time about 10 months ago, and we discussed also this accident we heard before. And the reason why I was in Serbia last year is the same as I'm here. We had a seminar concerning social housing. So what's going on in Austria? And I will tell you something about housing problems, but also probably about solutions, what we see as solutions. First of all, I have to mention that I learned at school that Austria has 7 million inhabitants. Vienna itself has 1.5. And this is true for about 30 years ago. And nowadays we have 2.1 million in Vienna and 9.2 million in Austria. So what does it mean if you have a city with 550,000 people more than 25 years ago? That also has something to do with housing. There's also something to do with the costs of living. So we are those who have to deal with it. And then you have to look at the geography of Austria. Austria is a country with loads and loads of mountains. And if you look at these mountains, you see that you don't have flat land. You just have flat land here in Vienna, let's say on the opposite side of the river Danube, but you don't have flat land for building houses on the other side of the river, or nearly no land. This is also true for other states in Austria. Probably for those coming from abroad know where Salzburg is, a very famous and nice city, but it's also more or less in the Alps. And if you look at the country, you will see that you can't have flat land. And what do you need when you build houses? We do that. You have flat land. But if there is no space, you can't buy this flat land, and you can't do what you should do. Now, this is what we want to do, build more and more houses. And these houses should be affordable. Affordable to those people which we represent. And these are mostly bricklayers, woodworkers, and others. Painters, for instance, carpenters. And they earn not that much money which is needed. So when they spend in Austria, let's say 1/3 of their net salary, it's loads and loads of money. And what we do as trade unionists, and I have to tell you that we, in our two enterprises, which deal with social housing, have all in all 45,000 units in our hand. And out of the 45,000 units, we have about 30,000 apartments. The others are garages, shops, and things like this, parking space. But 30,000 units are apartments. And we build that, we renovate that, we invest. And if you see the overall situation in Austria, you will find that all in all, 185 enterprises dealing with social houses in Austria. And plus some cities, especially the city of Vienna, own their own flats, their own apartments, so that people can live in subsidized apartments. And these subsidized apartments, especially in Vienna, are 220,000. This is the largest number all around the world. And other cities in Austria own about 80,000, more or less. So about 300,000 flats are in the hand of communities. And what do these communities do? They invest in new ones, they invest in old ones, they renovate them according to environmental problems, to solve these problems. This is also what we do. And what does it mean at the end of the day? There's no such pressure on the market as in other countries. We also often compare the city of Vienna with the city of Munich in Germany. And you have the rents in Germany, and if you compare them with the rents in Vienna they're lower. And why they're lower? Because we are subsidized and we get the money from the public, invest in new houses, invest in new apartments. The town has apartments itself. And this means that the pressure on the market is not that high. Although Vienna is growing. Other cities are growing as well. The second largest town in Austria is Graz. I learned at school 30 years ago that Graz has 220,000 inhabitants. Now it has 310,000 or something. So nearly 90,000 people more in the same city. And this means something for the housing market. And if you have subsidized apartments, the pressure goes down. And this is, let's say, the crucial point of the so-called Austrian model of social housing, and this would be the start of my things, and I come back to you probably a little bit later to describe what we as trade unionists really do and why we are doing that and what do we do in the future. That means renovate them according to environmental policy. Thank you.
Je lui donne la parole à Sandra.
Let's talk about what the young people in Spain considers their first problem, housing. In Spain and in my organization, Izquierda, Unida, you stop being young when you are over 30, 31. You stop participating in the youth and you pass to the adult phase. In Spain, the average age for the young people to emancipate is 30 years. The young people in Spain emancipate when they stop being young. Now we have two solutions. We can increase the limit that we consider young, or we can stop considering housing as a business, and we can start creating solutions to return housing to its social funds. In Spain, the situation of the housing in the youth is that only 1 out of 6 young people leave their parents' home and when they are under 30 years. When you leave your parents' home, you have 2 options. You can share a room with several unknown people, or you can try to live by your own. You can rent a flat only for you. But if you decide to rent a flat only for you, you will have to pay the 92.3% of your salary only for the rent. Now, you can try to understand how you will live with this 7.7% of the salary that is left every month. Then, the most young people choose to share a room with 5 unknown people till you have 34 years. It's the average age the young people stop sharing flats. And that means that 1 out of 5 young people with work is in situation of poverty. We are in the government. We have a really good rates in employment. The youth unemployment falls till the 19.1%. This is the lowest rate since 2007. But in the young people lower than 25 years, this rate goes till the 24.9%. What that means? That we are all day hearing that we are what in Spain we said the Nini generation. the crystal generation, the generation that we are always complaining. And they also said us, encouraged us to fight more because we are the future of the young people is the future. We are the future generation. But we can't think in the future of the youth. We can't even plan the future of the youth if we are struggling to survive the present. If we don't have enough salary to pay our rent and keep living, and stop thinking about how many coffees can I pay this month after I pay the rent. These are statistics that the Spanish Emancipation Observatory creates every year. And it says that this Nini generation means that, I don't know if in other countries, but in Spain, the young people is always hearing that we are lazy, and that we are lazy and we don't want to work, we don't want to study, and because the reason that we can't leave our parents' home is because we don't want to. We are lazy. We're just lazy. But the reality is absolutely the opposite. We are the yes generation. The 35.5% of the young people who are working is studying at the same time. Because one of the reasons is because they need to work to pay their studies. So, to sum up, we are the yes generation. The yes generation to work and study at the same time. The yes generation to a precarious contracts. Because yes, we have jobs, but we have a job with the minimum salary. We have to fight all day to have our labor's rights. We are the yes generation to share a flat till we have 34. We are the yes generation to enchain unpaid internships. We are the yes generation to move every six months because we enchain temporary contracts, and we have to move because we can't pay the rent. We are the yes generation that has to go back to live with their parents. And we are the yes generation that we have labor schedules that doesn't allow us to live. And why I said this? Because we, as Izquierda Unida, are in the government, and we have the Ministry of Youth and Housing. We are in a coalition government, youth and children, sorry. We, as Izquierda Unida, are in a coalition government with the Socialist Party. And we don't have any competences in housing as the ministry, because there is an exclusively Ministry of Housing that belongs to the Socialist Party. That means that we have to struggle every day and battle every day to put and create public policies that put the center of the public policies of housing, the human rights. We have a Minister of Housing that prefers to meet with Airbnb than with the tenants' union. And this means that we have to fight over another ways. We have to work with some associations, with some entities, and I will explain you later in the solution block some funny stories that we face with the with the real estate lobby when we, as a ministry that has no competence in housing, try to face some of the abuses of power that the real estate lobby try every day. So we will talk about that later.
I will present pardon, c'est ma langue maternelle, donc je vais lui dire merci en espagnol. Gracias Sandra por la intervención. Excusez-moi pour la petite parole en espagnol. Donc là, je vais donner la parole à Christoph Heil du Parti communiste d'Autriche, qui est juste à côté de moi. Christoph.
Hello, thank you. I'm representing the Communist Party of Austria, and as you will know, this is a rather small party. We are not, as of yet, even present in the national parliament, but in the last few years, we saw a growth. On a federal and an urban level, we are represented in the government now, in some towns and some counties. We have a growth in membership, and we also have in other elections, like the general election and the election for the European Parliament, not sufficient, but still very welcoming and by far the best results for the last years. And there are many reasons for this. But one of those reasons is our focus on housing. And another indicator for this is that other parties also stepped in on the whole housing issue. What I want to say is, although we have this big part of social housing, state-supported housing, there is a housing issue in Austria. Maybe not as harsh as in other countries, of course, but still, we also have to see that it is not as possible as it was before for people to build their own house because of land prices and construction prices that had a steep increase. It was harder to get private credits to build your house, as in the rural areas as well as in the urban areas. And on the other hand, Austria has a very high percentage of tenants, and not all of those people live in the government subsidized sector. And due to limited contracts, to a fragmented tenancy law, to the coupling of the rent increases with the consumer price index, and way too little efforts in the public housing sector, the rents have increased in the last few years by very big margins. The margins are that big that now people are really facing problems. And this is also a reason why when we are concentrating or focusing on housing, we see more support by the people. The reasons for the increase in the housing prices are the multiple crises like the pandemic, the imperialist warmongering, the aftermath of real estate speculations, touristical short-term rental agreements, and so on. The problem was the government didn't react in time, and it did not react in a satisfying way up to this day, even though there are now some measures taken to make things a bit better, but this is still not the stuff we need. Housing is a fundamental right, and if we take that seriously, that shouldn't be a privilege that can only be afforded by some people. That shouldn't be something where people have to worry about if they can afford their flats and the rents. We have to make sure that housing is something that is provided to everyone, no matter what. So I would say, you Christian, already told us that there is a big sector of public funded housing, 300 flats in Austria, approximately 300,000 flats. We have a big sector of non-profit cooperative housing, which is also a great thing, and I think you're very active in this sector. But still, as you said, if we would work on making these sectors way bigger, this would also translate to better or more affordable rents for all the other people who are living in the private sector or in the investment sector of housing. And we don't have to forget that. And so we really have to work on the things that we make public housing and non-profit cooperative housing a thing that is more present again. because, well, the real wages are stagnant for decades now if they're not decreasing. And that makes housing also an aspect of class struggle, and as such we have to address it. We have to make the people realize and also support their realization that there's something wrong, and we have to break the cycle of profit logic in housing, since housing is a fundamental right.
Merci beaucoup. Maintenant, je vais donner la parole à Enrique. C'est vrai que le cas que Enrique va nous exposer, c'est un peu différent parce que c'est un mouvement d'association de voisins à Madrid. C'est pas vraiment typique, c'est pas vraiment normal, disons, mais c'est un mouvement de voisins qui est spécifique de Madrid et c'est pour ça que c'est une expérience intéressante. Merci beaucoup d'être ici, Enrique.
Bueno, pues lo primero, muchas gracias por la invitación a este encuentro, que me parece algo muy interesante y que puede ser muy productivo para un futuro próximo, espero, de conseguir alianzas, uniones, ayudas para mejorar el problema de la vivienda.
J'avais pas dit, mais je vais traduire directement de l'espagnol. Je vais traduire moi directement. Il va parler en espagnol et moi je vais traduire en français. Donc c'est pour ça qu'on va avoir un petit délai. Excusez-nous, j'avais pas dit directement. Donc simplement, il nous a dit que merci pour l'invitation. C'est Enrique Villalobos, de la Fédération régionale des associations de voisins de Madrid. Il a dit que nous sommes un mouvement citoyen engagé dans la défense des droits civils et de la construction de villes vivables et solidaires.
En España, la vivienda está incluida en el artículo 47 de la Constitución española y en teoría es un derecho, pero en la realidad pues no lo es.
En Espagne, ce que nous disons, c'est que le logement est un droit, parce que ce n'est pas une marchandise, c'est inscrit dans la Constitution, c'est l'article 47 qui régule, qui dit que le logement est un droit, mais ce droit n'est pas aujourd'hui garanti. Donc on dit que ce n'est pas vrai et que ce n'est pas réellement un droit efficace.
Voy a hacer un repaso rápido por la situación de la vivienda en España. Me voy a saltar lo que ya ha comentado Sandra, que tiene que ver con la juventud. Y bueno, lo primero quizás es lo que está ocurriendo también en toda Europa, y es que los precios de la vivienda no paran de subir. En el último año han subido un 20% el precio de la venta y un 15% el precio del alquiler.
Je vais brièvement expliquer quelle est la situation du logement en Espagne et surtout à Madrid. Je ne vais pas me référer aux éléments de jeunesse qu'a déjà dit Sandra. En premier lieu, parce que, bon, évidemment, elle a expliqué la situation de la jeunesse, mais il faut dire que l'augmentation des prix a été cette dernière année de 20% en Espagne, à Madrid.
Normalmente, desde el neoliberalismo, nos van a decir que esto es un problema entre la oferta y la demanda y que esto se resuelve con más oferta. Pero lo cierto es que en Madrid, solo en la ciudad de Madrid hay proyectadas más de 150.000 viviendas y el precio no para de subir. Por lo tanto, en realidad, ese mercado, si no tiene reglas, pues evidentemente no funciona.
Ce qu'ils essaient de nous dire, c'est que c'est un problème du marché, de l'offre et de la demande. Mais ce n'est pas vrai, parce que le cas, par exemple, à Madrid, c'est qu'actuellement, on a plus de 150 000 nouveaux logements qui sont prévus et qui ont été construits. Donc, ce n'est pas seulement un problème d'offre et de demande, parce qu'ils continuent à spéculer sur le prix du logement.
En España hay, según el Instituto Nacional de Estadística, 3,8 millones de viviendas vacías y solo en la ciudad de Madrid hay 97.000.
En Espagne, il y a actuellement, selon l'Institut de statistique d'Espagne, 3,8 millions de logements vides. Et seulement dans la capitale, 97 000 dans la capitale de Madrid, dont 180 000 dans la région de Madrid.
Por lo tanto, hay una retención especulativa.
C'est évident qu'il y a une retention spéculative du logement.
A esto hay que añadir que la vivienda social en España es escasa. En el conjunto del Estado hay un 3,3% de vivienda social. En la comunidad en la que yo vivo apenas es de un 1,1%, mientras que la media en Europa pues está por encima del 9%.
C'est évident que pour nous aussi, le problème du logement social est un problème évident, seulement les données. Le logement social en Espagne ne représente que le 3,3% du parc total, et dans la communauté dans la région de Madrid, c'est approximativement 1,5% le logement social du parc total. Pardon. Et par contre, la moyenne européenne est proche du 9% au niveau européen de logement social.
En España, que es un país turístico, la presión turística está también contribuyendo a romper el mercado, ¿no? Y para que os hagáis una idea, en Madrid, ciudad, hay más viviendas turísticas ilegales que pisos sociales pone la ciudad a disposición de la gente más precaria.
Un autre élément très important, c'est que la pression touristique, évidemment, à Madrid, qui est une ville touristique, est très forte et qui dérègle complètement le marché. À Madrid, il y a plus de logements touristiques illégaux que de logements publics gérés par l'administration publique.
En definitiva, la vivienda en Europa, en el mundo, pero en Madrid, que es de donde yo vengo, se ha convertido en un activo financiero y no en un recurso social para la mayoría social.
Donc finalement, le problème du logement, c'est que le logement s'est transformé, n'est plus un droit, c'est un actif financier. Le résultat, c'est la financiarisation, la spéculation, et donc évidemment, c'est plus un droit, c'est un bien pour spéculer. Bon, merci beaucoup pour faire cet encadrement de la situation générale, non seulement évidemment en Europe, j'ai déjà fait l'introduction, mais aussi en Autriche, grâce aux données aussi que nous a donné Sandra pour les jeunes, et pour aussi la vision d'une capitale comme Madrid qui est assolée ou attaquée par les fonds vautours et la spéculation pour le logement. On veut rentrer dans une deuxième partie, on aura tous les intervenants auront 10 minutes aussi sur les solutions, sur quelles sont les propositions qu'on a depuis les syndicats, depuis les mouvements sociaux, depuis les partis de gauche et évidemment depuis la jeunesse, quelles sont les propositions qu'on peut faire pour résoudre le logement. En tout cas, je crois que c'est évident qu'il n'y a pas un seul exemple, il n'y a pas un seul modèle, mais il y a une expérience et il y a un travail énorme des organisations syndicales, des mouvements sociaux, des mouvements de jeunesse et des organisations politiques de gauche. Ce n'est pas juste maintenant, ça fait beaucoup qu'on lutte pour le droit au logement et je crois que cette deuxième partie est aussi très intéressante. Je redonne la parole au camarade Christoph. À Christian, pardon. Sorry, Christoph.
Thanks a lot. What my colleague Christoph told us is right. We are not in heaven in Austria, but I think we are, let's say, better off than other countries. And I mentioned the town of Graz and I mentioned the town of Salzburg a couple of minutes ago. And I think the town of Graz, where I'm from, has a communist mayor since about 5 years now, or something like this. And I think the reason why this is so is the social housing market or the housing market in Graz, because other parties didn't care about that. This is what I think is one of the reasons why the Communist Party in Graz is that strong. More or less it's in Salzburg as well, I think. What comes in my mind when I hear something about the difficulties of the Austrian market is the following. I have to explain something. Where the money comes from. The money comes from subsidies from the government, and the subsidies are an extra tax, if you will, kind of a tax. Each and everybody who works in Austria, who is insured in Austria, have to pay 1% of the gross salary to a specific pot. Let's call it pot. And this pot is about 3.5 to 4 billion euros a year. And out of that 3.5 to 4 billion a year, the government spends money to the so-called Länder in Austria. And for those who are not coming from Austria, Austria has 9 Länder, just like countries, just like Germany or something. And each and every country can do what it wants. That was not true until 2008. And at that time, there was a new law that the country, the land, can do with this money what it wants. And at that time, we had the financial crisis. So what did some Länder? They subsidized their own budget. Nothing else. But they didn't build houses. They didn't subsidize social housing. And this is a really a great fault in our country. So what we as trade unionists want to have is an earmark of this so-called tax, or Wohnbaubeitrag as it calls in German. It has to be earmarked. So this was true until 2008, that this money goes to subsidized houses, and nowadays you can do what you want. And if you compare all those 9 countries in Austria, you will find countries, especially this country which surrounds Vienna, it's called Low Austria. And this Low Austria spends money for each and everything what is not worth doing. They were completely bankrupt at the end of the day, let's say this. And so they needed money. And they spent the money what should go to the subsidized housing market to their own needs. This was a big fault, and this is still true until now. So what we as trade unionists want to have is an earmark of this subsidy, which is about 3.5 to 4 billion a year. That's loads of money. This is really much money. What we also want to have is, especially in the large cities, just like Vienna or Graz, there are railway tracks, old stations which are not needed. There are military buildings and things like this. They are not needed any longer. And what we want to have is that this land, which is, let's say, in the city itself, not on the periphery, in the city itself, that this should be also just for social housing. That we can build that. We still build, but not enough. So this must be true in Austria. For the largest cities, especially for Vienna, for Salzburg, for Graz, or if you heard about Innsbruck, it's a town which is really in the Alps. So no flat land, just the river, and on the right and left-hand side, there's a little bit of flat land. So you can't build a house there. These are really problems. So this is the first thing we want to have. An earmark of the Wohnbaubeitrag, this special tax, what we have in Austria. I pay for that, you pay for that. Each and everybody who works in this country pays for it. So it's a kind of a contract between generations. So, for instance, if you're 80 or 60 now and you have your flat, you also pay for it. Because someone paid for that when you were 25 or something. So it's a kind of a contract between generations. And this should be not only the crucial point, but it should be earmarked. This is what we as trade unionists want to have. And this is what also we as trade unionists who own 2 of these companies really want to have, because we have a lack of money. If you want to build flats on the hinterland of Vienna, because Vienna, as I told you, is growing. And people want to live. Each and everybody has, not each and everybody, but I think each and everybody has in his mind, in his DNA, it should be quiet. It should be somewhere where I have public transport. It should have a balcony, and it should be environmentally friendly. And I want to have 4 rooms for my family. This is the wish. And we can have wishes. In 2 months' time, we have Christmas. So each and everybody can have wishes. But if you want to have wishes, and they have to become true, you have to have money. But we don't have it. And then I tell you a secret, because I told you a couple of minutes ago that I'm also a member of the supervisory board of 2 private-owned companies. We do have these private-owned companies that we earn money from the private market, because in Austria, still people exist who want to pay for a flat 800,000 euros. And if they want to pay 800,000 euros, they should pay 800,000 euros. And there we get the money. And then we have to subsidize our own companies on the public market. And if we have the money from the private market, which goes to the subsidized market, to the social market, we can build more houses, because there is a need of more houses. Because, as I told you, especially Vienna is growing, and Austria is growing. And if we look at not also the number, because we know that, let's say, 20, 25 years ago, one man, one woman in Austria lives on the average on 20 square meters. Now it's 28 square meters. That means that you have more square meters per flat. That's one thing. The other thing is the quality went up. We built houses in the 60s and 70s and the 80s with no central heating. Now it's compulsory. Each and every has a central heating. You can't build a house without a balcony nowadays. Everybody wants to have a balcony. So that costs lots of money. So the quality went up, or if you look at the floors, if you look at this floor, it's a wooden floor. That's costly. 20 years ago, we built floors, just very cheap ones, not nice ones, but they were floors. Nowadays, people want to have a wooden floor. That costs money. So the prices went up. But we as trade unionists have a social thinking, and we want to keep the rents as low as possible. So if you compare the rents nowadays in our enterprises, they're not that much higher than 20 years ago. If you want to have a flat of, let's say, 75 square meters, you get it for 600 euros plus. If you want to have heating or something, or telephone, or you need power supply and things like this, it costs you 200 euros on average in Austria. But the rent itself is 600 euros. And this, I think, is more or less affordable still. But my colleague is right that the politics doesn't look at this, or didn't look good enough at this. So we do have problems, but I think if we compare our country, if we compare the city of Vienna with other cities, with other countries, we are on the better side. So to summarize, I would say we have to earmark this tax, and we have to have flat, which is in the hand nowadays of the government, or of the federal railway system, or of the military, and which is not needed. It should be just for social housing and nothing else. So the pressure on the market goes down. This would be one of our wishes to Santa Claus, which comes in 2 months' time. Thank you.
Our response to the housing crisis as Izquierda Unida is as part of the Sumar coalition is based on 3 main actions: immediate protection, structural reform, and public investment. But I'm not discovering anything new for you. But it's important I'm going to explain what is doing the Smart Coalition and Izquierda Unida now, the practical things, and then the cultural thing. In the practical thing, Sumar has proposed an emergency housing decree with several measures. Freeze all rental contracts and extend them for at least 3 more years to avoid several increases of prices. Regulate temporary room and tourist rentals, and fertilize fiscal and legal tools to stop speculation and ensure the housing returns to its social functions. As Izquierda Unida also wants to arrive to invest the 2% of GDP in housing policies and build 150,000 new public homes every year till achieve the 20% of public housing stock by 2035. But this is practical measures that we are not discovering anything new. We all know what we have to do. But do this is not easy. This is the practical thing. But when you are in the government, when you try to put these measures and put in practical all these measures, you face up that this is not easy. And I'm not saying this is not easy because we are in a coalition government whose housing minister prefers to meet Airbnb than the tenants union, or because they prefer to spend more money buying in defense than in housing, or because we have a housing law whose competences are for the regions, the autonomous communities, and we have some regions governed by the right that they don't want to apply the law, and nothing happens. I'm saying this because this is a cultural thing. This is a cultural battle with the real estate lobby that has a lot of power across the world. But in Spain, this is the funny story. As you know, we are in the Ministry of Youth and Children, and we have no competences in housing. But we decided that we want to do what we can to protect the tenants, protect the young people. And we decided to create a tenants' right guide. We published together with the Spanish Youth Institute, which is inside of the ministry. And this is not only a guide, this is an empowering tool with plain languages that helps people to defend themselves against illegal fees, abusive clauses, and real estate scams. But what it seems that it's a simple guide, a small guide that we don't have competences, and it's a guide, okay? The real estate lobby decided to send a letter to the Spanish president, Pedro Sánchez, asking him to erase our guide because it's very harmful for their interests. And in this letter that they sent to the president, they said that the ministry is really bad, that they are really angry with us for a simple guide that a ministry with no competences in housing made. Why this happens? Because they don't like when we tell people their rights. They're not angry for the guide. They're angry when we tell people how to prevent their illegal and trying to abuse power among the majority. In Spain, when we see it's not just a housing crisis, it's what I was telling before, it's a power struggle between two opposite models. The market that wants business and the majority that needs to protect this as a human right. Beyond the laws, there is a cultural dimension. And this cultural dimension is faced on this guide because knowledge is power. And when you tell the young tenants, and when the young tenants know how to avoid pay the agency's fees, that's not a small thing. That's a political act of emancipation. That can seem something small, something simple, something without dimension. But this is a political act of emancipation because we are giving the young people the power of knowledge. That's why this is not just a governmental publication. This is more a tool for everyday resistance. In Spain, every time we take a step to protect the tenants, some of them said that we are attacking the market. We don't care about the market. I care about to protect the majority. I care to protect about the people who lives, works, and pay rent every month while others take profits for their basic needs for a home. So yes, if defending the right to housing makes speculators uncomfortable, we're fine with that. Because sometimes defending your rights makes those who violates them uncomfortable. And that's the point that we have to face.
Okay, so what to do? The first thing is we have to reaffirm the growing public understanding that the housing sector must not remain under the dominance of the capital pro-profit interests. And this is to make sure that those wish lists to Santa Claus become powerful political demands. This is the baseline, because without that, all the following things I'm saying will be void. Secondly, we need to strengthen the legal framework to make sure that non-profit cooperative housing and public housing offer affordable rents on an ongoing basis forever, in the best case, that they provide a more easy access for everyone, and that they are protected from privatization attempts. That's very important. Third, we have to reform tenancy law, I think, of course, in Austria, but I guess in very many other countries as well. We have to make it understandable for the daily users, for those people who live there. We have to unify it. We have to abolish limited contracts. And in Austria, we have to end the automatical rent increases that are coupled with the consumer price index. Fourth, we need a broad investment in public housing and non-profit cooperative housing, because our long-term goal should be that we push back the pro-profit market. We want to declare a fight on them. Fifth, we need to work on the financial political framework, and this is where you were saying a lot of stuff that we are also supporting. So there's first in Austria the Wohnbaubeitrag you mentioned and explained. That has to be put back to public housing. We need better land allocation policies. So if there is free land that is owned by the state or by the townships, that needs to be put to the services of public housing. We need a reinstallment of an investment bank for subsidized housing. We maybe should reallocate some investments that go into war and other industry sectors into public services as housing. Sixth, and right now we have to fight trends like short-term tourism, Airbnb, speculative investments, other forms of platform capitalism in the housing markets. That is a rising thing. We have to fight vacancies and stuff like that. We believe that public housing and non-profit cooperative housing is an investment in the future where the people in generations to come will profit from these things, as it is in Vienna. Here you can visit those buildings that were built 100 years ago, and still they are standing and still they are providing living space. Public housing and the cooperative housing can make it possible that there are affordable rents on the long run. We can make it possible that there is some flexibility, because maybe in one point in your life you want to have the big 4-room flat, but when you get older, maybe you don't need that much space and the 4-room flat is more of an issue for you. We can better guarantee that there will be the environmental sustainability guaranteed. We also want to work on good working conditions for those people who built those houses. If we are focusing on those things, I think it would be possible to bring back housing to those people who actually reside in those houses that are built.
Bien. Bueno, en nuestra opinión hay 6 líneas de acción que son esenciales para poder resolver el problema en España, y muchas o varias de estas serían también equivalentes en Europa.
Notre opinion est qu'il y a 6 axes pour réguler le marché, protéger les habitants et pour protéger le droit au logement. C'est des mesures, des propositions qui sont valables en Espagne, à Madrid et dans toute l'Europe.
Son 6 claves para ordenar el mercado y proteger a la gente. Y empezaríamos por una primera que es esencial, y es combatir la especulación. Una segunda sería frenar la gentrificación y la expulsión de la población de sus lugares de residencia. 3, actuar y redistribuir las plusvalías urbanas. 4, fiscalizar la financiarización global de la vivienda, y esta es esencial en toda Europa. 5, recuperar el protagonismo de lo público. Y 6, invertir más y mejor en vivienda.
Ces 6 axes sont pour réguler le marché et protéger les habitants. Le premier est lutter contre la spéculation. Le deuxième est stopper la gentrification et les expulsions des logements des gens. La troisième, c'est réactualiser et redistribuer les plus-values urbaines. Le quatrième axe, c'est encadrer la financiarisation globale du logement. Le 5e axe, c'est redonner un rôle central ou essentiel au secteur public. Et le 6e, c'est investir davantage et mieux dans le logement.
Voy a hacer algún desarrollo de alguna de estas líneas en medidas concretas. Por un lado, al menos en España, necesitamos un planeamiento urbanístico al servicio del derecho a la vivienda. Y eso implica subir las cesiones obligatorias de suelo al 15% e implantar reservas del 30% de vivienda asequible en el suelo urbano consolidado, protegiendo el uso residencial y planificar con prioridad la mezcla social.
Il a dit qu'il va développer certains de ces axes en mesures concrètes. En premier lieu, l'urbanisme doit être au service du droit au logement. Il faut porter les cessions obligatoires de terrain à 15% et instaurer des réserves de 30% de logements abordables dans les zones urbaines consolidées. Protéger l'usage résidentiel et planifier en priorité la mixité sociale.
Necesitamos regular las viviendas de uso turístico con seriedad. Y especialmente allí donde su impacto esté siendo crítico. Debemos, en nuestra opinión, prohibirlas en aquellos edificios que son de uso residencial, y luego pues la regulación deberá implicar un registro real, condiciones de habitabilidad, bueno, en general que la vivienda turística no puede devorar a la vivienda residencial.
Il faut réguler sérieusement les logements touristiques. il faut les interdire dans les zones où, bon, ils croient, le mouvement social croit qu'il faut les interdire dans les zones où leur impact est critique, créer un registre public de ces logements touristiques, définir des normes de salubrité et appliquer un régime de sanctions effectif, y compris pour les plateformes. Le logement touristique ne doit pas dévorer le logement résidentiel. C'est pour ça qu'il croit aussi qu'on doit l'interdire dans le logement résidentiel directement.
En España tenemos un gravísimo déficit de datos fiables en materia de vivienda, gravísimo. Posiblemente esta es de las cosas que nos diferencian más del resto de los países europeos. Y por lo tanto en España necesitamos datos fiables desde observatorios públicos de vivienda con una metodología común a la europea, ya que sin esos datos fiables es muy difícil en España hacer una buena política de vivienda. Bueno, esto...
En Espagne, un déficit de données réelles sur le logement. On a besoin de données, encore plus de données. On a besoin de créer des observatoires publics du logement avec une méthodologie commune à l'échelle européenne. Sans données fiables, il n'y a pas de possibilité de faire de bonnes politiques. Nous avons besoin de langage commun quand on parle du logement adéquat, c'est-à-dire abordable, digne et durable, et donc d'indicateurs comparables au niveau européen.
Bueno, la siguiente sería, bueno, ya la ha comentado Sandra, pero bueno, para mí es importante decirlo también. En España necesitamos un parque público potente de alquiler asequible, mínimo del 20%, para podernos acercar a las medias europeas. En España tenemos un banco malo, que le llamamos, que es la Sareb, un banco que se creó para absorber todos los activos tóxicos cuando la crisis de la vivienda, y hoy está al servicio del Estado, pero todavía va muy lentamente dando vivienda a la gente. Y entonces necesitamos que haya una implicación real, de manera ya clara, de la Sareb, y a nivel presupuestario, lo dije antes en el taller de feminismo, el Estado quiere aplicar un 0,08% del Producto Interior Bruto al problema de la vivienda. En nuestra opinión, no deberíamos tener menos del 2% del PIB.
Il a dit que, bon, déjà Sandra avait dit cette mesure concrète, mais en Espagne, on a besoin d'un parc public fort de logements locatifs abordables. L'objectif, c'est atteindre un 20% et mobiliser le foncier public et des actifs à travers En Espagne, on a créé une banque mauvaise, ça s'appelle comme ça, lors de la crise du foncier, lors de la crise de 2008-2012. Donc tous les actifs mauvais, tous les actifs toxiques des banques ont été sauvés par le public. Et c'est à cette époque que s'est créée une banque qui a sauvé d'autres entités bancaires. Et c'est pour ça qu'il expliquait qu'on a besoin que cette banque mauvaise, qu'on appelle en Espagne, s'engage pour financer le logement public aussi. Pour faire une idée, actuellement en Espagne, on parle du 0,08 du produit intérieur brut dédié au logement. Et il croit que minimum, on devrait investir minimum un 2% du produit intérieur brut dans le logement pour arriver à un niveau minimum comparable à l'Union européenne.
Este déficit en vivienda, al final, lo dije antes, ¿no? Uno de los problemas que lo aflora es la vivienda vacía. Entonces necesitamos movilizar la vivienda vacía existente, ya sea con recargos, con impuestos, aplicando de verdad lo que es el tanteo y retracto, que es la posibilidad de que el Estado pueda ser comprador o facilitador de la compra en el caso de que se quiera vender, y, si fuera preciso, la expropiación del usufructo, es decir, expropiar no la propiedad, pero sí el uso de la vivienda. Otro de los problemones que hay en España es que durante muchos años se llegaron a construir 6 millones de viviendas protegidas. Hoy por hoy prácticamente todas esas viviendas son parte del mercado libre porque se permite desclasificarla, y nosotros entendemos que la vivienda que es protegida lo tiene que ser para siempre. Y todo esto a su vez tiene su cara más amarga en los desahucios, que hoy por hoy, aunque por ley teóricamente no puede haber un desahucio sin alternativa habitacional, día a día vemos cómo se desahucia cada día a cientos de familias sin alternativa habitacional o, en el mejor de los casos, dándoles un vale para que tengan 2 semanas en un albergue.
Un des problèmes j'ai déjà parlé de lui, c'est les logements vides, les logements vacants. Donc il faut mobiliser ces logements vacants. Il y a de plusieurs façons de le faire. Évidemment, la voie des taxes, des impôts, des surtaxes sur le droit de préemption et même l'expropriation de l'utilisation du logement. Quand ils sont vides, l'État peut ou les municipalités peuvent exproprier et donc ils défendent aussi l'expropriation de l'utilisation des logements, si nécessaire. Aussi, il y a un autre problème en Espagne, c'est la déclassification, ça s'appelle comme ça, du logement social, parce que... ¿Cuántos millones has dicho?
6.
En Espagne, on a créé 6 millions de logements publics, mais le problème, c'est qu'au fur et à mesure que les années passent, ce logement perd la protection. Donc ces logements, après, reviennent sur le marché privé. Et donc la proposition est évidemment arrêtée avec ce procès et qu'on ne puisse pas déclassifier le logement social. Le bien public ne doit pas finir dans le marché privé sans condition. Et le dernier problème, évidemment, avec les logements vides aussi, c'est qu'il faut interdire les expulsions sans solution de relogement. Parce que même si par loi, le gouvernement de coalition l'a déjà fait, l'a écrit au niveau légal, mais il continue à avoir des centaines d'expulsions chaque mois dans les grandes villes et en Espagne. Donc c'est important d'arrêter définitivement avec les expulsions de logements sans capacité de relogement.
Y por último, la rehabilitación masiva y asequible. En España, el 85% de las viviendas son anteriores a los años 90, al año 90, 1990. Y por lo tanto tiene un parque muy envejecido. Entonces necesitamos que mínimo el 3% de las viviendas anualmente sean rehabilitadas, mínimo. Y para eso pues, es también imprescindible que se atienda primero a las familias vulnerables, porque la mayor parte de los fondos europeos que han llegado, de los Next Generation, han sido, digamos, captadas por la gente que más poder adquisitivo tenía.
Et le dernier point, c'est la rénovation massive et abordable. En Espagne, la plupart des logements ont été construits dans les années 90. Donc, vous imaginez, ce ne sont pas des conditions vraiment adéquates. Et donc, l'objectif devrait être minimum de la rénovation du 3% du parc de logements par an, avec des aides priorisant les ménages vulnérables et en cohérence avec les directives européennes sur l'efficacité énergétique. Par exemple, les fonds Next Generation ont été utilisés par les multinationales et pas tellement par les mairies. Donc, ils n'ont pas servi à ce qu'ils devraient servir.
Y lo último, esto, además de en España, hemos hablado ya de que el problema es generalizado. Entonces, encuentros como este son esenciales para que forjemos alianzas, para que nos conozcamos y para que al final, entre todas y todos, podamos impedir que el futuro plan de vivienda asequible que está diseñando la Unión Europea acabe siendo una derivación de dinero a las constructoras y a los de siempre. Necesitamos que Europa se tome en serio la vivienda como un derecho y no la vivienda como un negocio.
Et pour finir, simplement dire que ces rencontres au niveau international sont aussi très importantes parce qu'on a besoin de ces échanges, de ces alliances entre mouvements citoyens, entre syndicats et organisations politiques, parce qu'actuellement, le plan européen qu'ils essaient de faire, le plan de logement abordable, doit servir vraiment pour que le logement soit un droit et pas qu'il ne serve pas pour continuer à être une marchandise et qui ne continue pas à être un élément de spéculation. Merci beaucoup. Donc maintenant la parole est à vous. On a, si je ne me trompe pas, 20 minutes tranquillement. Après, je donnerai à nouveau la parole à tous les intervenants pour répondre à vos questions. Donc, please, s'il vous plaît, vous pouvez poser toutes les questions que vous voulez. Je crois qu'on a un bon espace de temps. On a 20 minutes pour les questions. Merci.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Stefano Aman, Communist Foundation Party of Italy. Well, I come from a city, Milan, where which is affected of a phenomenon which share with several cities across Europe, the so-called gentrification, which has experienced since the early 2000s years, and this phenomenon which affect also the let me say the lower middle class. So the political situation is quite difficult to analyze and the sharing. The result is the merely expulsion of the working class from the city, not only the center city, out of the outskirts also, especially the outskirts, producing alongside the city dormitory neighborhood, a lot of. And as communists, we are working on it, even in cooperation with trade union and the social movement, of course. And we are proposing, we are fighting for public housing, as you, all of you, were talking about, and for the aim for not only justice, not only social justice, but especially to lower the rents, as you pointed out before my intervention. But I would like to put on the table another fact that affect especially my town, my city, which is the conflict between two major issues, political issues, which are the aim to stop the consumption of soil and the understandable needs of house or public house for the working class. So we are open to suggestions from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tu décides, hein?
More questions?
Tu décides qui?
Ah, I don't know. I don't see who asked. Merlin, au fond. Facile.
Thank you. So, hello, friends and comrades. As Ismael mentioned, I'm Merlin from PVDA-PTB, and I wanted to make a very, very short comment, and most importantly, a very practical question. So the comment. As a party, we've been kind of lacking in the fight for housing access, so we are very in support of the EL campaign in this matter. And as Sandra mentioned, it's especially a problem for the youth in the working class. Basically, you can work as a young person. You have your partner which is also working. You go to the bank, and even though you're both working, bank doesn't agree to give you a credit. So it's becoming, it was a huge problem, and it's becoming bigger and bigger. And we see with the campaign that this problem is a continental problem. So my question, and as I said, it's a very practical one, and I'm not sure the panel is, how to say it, my question is, basically the coffers, the public coffers are empty because our governments are deciding to apply other politics, not answering the necessity to guarantee the right to housing. And my question is, where do you find the money to build a new public and accessible and affordable housing? And the sub-question is, in the construction of new affordable and public houses, what are the mechanisms you use to guarantee this right. For example, in Belgium, we are fighting for a percentage, basic percentage, in each construction from the real estate developers. They have to have like 5, 10, 15% of public and affordable housing. So that's a sub-question. In your countries, in your practice, what are the weapons, the tools that you have or that you manage to obtain in this fight? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Merlin. Other questions? Ici, Panayota.
Yes, hi. Thanks, everyone. I have two practical questions, mostly for the Austrian speakers. One is, if you are considering, you explained the system of 1% of taxing of everybody that is working in Austria. So I'm just thinking, in the climate of tax the rich, is there any proposal or is there any efforts in the city halls? I guess this is a governmental thing, it's not a city competence, but is there any thought or any revendication that people with higher or very high incomes contribute with more than 1% to try and find some money? And then the second thing would be, again for you too, but maybe for the others as a perspective, working on housing issues and the necessity to, since it is a human right and it is a public good, but we have so little or no, so we need to prioritize, and the priority is mostly given to vulnerable families or people. We have faced a little bit the fact that this is used by extreme right, saying that the population has risen because foreigners come, or these poor lazy people, white trash, that they don't want to work, they want to take the social housing. So how did you manage to counter the extreme right rhetorics around the need to provide first for the most vulnerable? Thank you.
More questions?
Thank you. Coming from a country that, as you know, has a huge problem of housing, Greece, you know that, it's at 45 that people get emancipated in Greece. Till 45, they live with their families. Huh? I have two questions. One of them is already been covered by Panayota about the taxation. And the other one is, among people discussing housing in Greece, we came up with the idea or a possibility of examining the plan to build not just houses, but the possibility to have blocks with public spaces, both public and private spaces, so it may come cheaper, so that everybody or every couple, every family may have its private, of course, possibilities, and share common spaces like as living rooms or whatever, or spaces to gather together. Is this a possibility that internationally is going to be examined, not to have ghettos, of course, but to create strength, to strengthening communities, artists, for instance, or students, or whatever. So I would like to know whether this is a feasible idea, and if it has been examined also in other countries.
If no more questions, I will give... pardon, s'il n'y a pas d'autres questions, je vais redonner la parole à tous les speakers. Ok, bon, si après on a du temps, on fait une dernière question. On va faire à l'envers, on va commencer avec Enrique et on va finir avec Christian. Donc on va faire à l'envers, comme ça je traduis au début.
Sí. Bien, sí, a ver, es verdad que que mucha gente que podríamos denominar clase obrera o working class, ¿no? Está siendo expulsada al extrarradio.
C'est vrai qu'il y a beaucoup de gens, comme disait le camarade de Refundazione, qu'on peut dire évidemment que c'est classe ouvrière qui sont écartées du centre pour aller à la périphérie.
Esto fundamentalmente se debe a que hay gente que tiene mucho dinero fuera de nuestros países que está comprando.
Ça se doit évidemment parce qu'il y a des gens qui ont beaucoup d'argent qui sont en train d'acheter dans le centre des villes les propriétés.
En nuestra opinión, no se debe permitir comprar vivienda si no es para residencia, si no es para habitarla o en su defecto para alquilarla a precios por debajo del mercado.
En notre opinion, on ne devrait pas permettre d'acheter des logements si ce n'est pas pour vivre dans ces logements ou si c'est pour les louer, mais à prix en dessous des prix du marché.
Y esto me lleva a responder en cierto modo a lo que decía el compañero de Bélgica, que entiendo que preguntaba que de dónde sacamos el dinero, ¿no?
Et ça me mène à répondre aux camarades de Belgique qui demandaient d'où on peut sortir l'argent.
Es que en estos momentos probablemente el problema no es un problema de liquidez económica ni tan siquiera un problema financiero.
En ces moments, le problème n'est pas de liquidité économique, n'est même pas financier.
Es un problema normativo. Es un problema de que nuestro modelo permite que se pueda hacer un uso especulativo de la vivienda. Efectivamente, siempre será necesario construir vivienda, siempre será necesario rehabilitar vivienda.
C'est un problème de loi, c'est un problème que le modèle actuel il permet de spéculer avec le logement. Et donc on va pouvoir toujours construire du logement, on va pouvoir toujours construire du logement en mode de propriété ou en mode de loyer.
Pero no creo que ahora mismo el peso del problema esté ahí. El peso del problema está en cómo se están utilizando viviendas en las que podría vivir cualquier persona de la clase obrera y que se están utilizando para otras cosas.
Donc le problème actuellement est plus sur l'usage des logements où la classe ouvrière pourrait résider ou pourrait vivre, qui n'est pas un usage pour la résidence, qui est un usage parfois pour les spéculations ou parfois pour d'autres choses. Je crois que les autres questions étaient plus sur les autres intervenants, donc je passe la parole et je ne traduis plus.
Okay. Well, so one of the questions was, what about the thing of we have to construct on free soil, and on the other hand, we have housing needs? I would say this is a problem indeed. One of the solutions could be refitting old structures, but this is just, that won't fulfill all the demands. I think that public housing or housing where the state or the government is more involved will be more easily to bring to build in a sustainable way, in a way that is on the one hand like not just flat on flat on flat on flat and no green spaces in between and stuff like that, but also they should, many people on little places but with green spaces. And I think, I'm not sure if the private sector is willing to commit to green spaces because they are costly and stuff like that. So that is why I'm also thinking that some of the environmental issues of the houses that will be needed could be tackled better by public housing. Then to the question of what about the extreme right? As you might have heard, I always said public housing and not social housing because I really want to promote the idea that this is not just housing for the deplorable people, but this is public housing where in the best of all cases, everyone has access to it. It should not be a segregation for those people who can't afford something else. No, it's public housing that belongs to us all. Models of financing this. I think Christian is better in explaining this, but of course there are models of like public-private partnerships in Austria as well. There is the model that private investors build a house and they allocate some flats for public housing reasons. I think it is better than nothing, but that is not the model we should strive towards to. And we also make the examination that some of those flats are not in the nice buildings where the expensive flats go, but they buy other flats to make them the social housing flats elsewhere in the city, and those pristine buildings for investment people remain for them.
About the possibility, about the possibility to have these buildings with common spaces. We have entire families, couples with kids, living in a room in Spain, in Madrid. This is not about having a place to live. This is about having a place to live with dignity. We have a lot, millions of empty buildings in Spain. We have to return these buildings to the social functions. If a family, if someone wants to live, wants to share spaces, wants to live in a different type of buildings, in a different type of houses, it has to be because they want to, not because they don't have other choice. And that's what we are fighting for. And that's what we are creating these public policies to not, what I was talking before. I don't want to attack the market, but I want to protect the majority. I want to give them the possibility to live with dignity. And if that breaks the market, so be it. So, sorry, not sorry. But I think that the possibility to create another, a medium, possibility to have a building or places to share spaces, because it's a place where they can afford what they can afford, it's not enough for us. It can be a possibility if you want to share, but it can be, we have to fight to achieve if I need to move to Madrid, I'm from Barcelona, I moved to Madrid for a job offer, and what we need to achieve is that if I'm looking for a place to live, for a rent a flat, and I look to the most famous app for this in Spain, Idealista, and I look the most near place to my job, like 40 minutes away by feet, and I will look for a flat with one room, and I want to pay less than 1,000, it's empty. I don't have any option in the map. It's completely empty. I have to go outside of Madrid to achieve that. My flat is really, really, really tiny. I pay 750 euros 3 years before I rent that flat. Now, my flat costs 1,100 euros. This is not possible. We have to make public policies to make people live with dignity, not only to live. So our policies has to be with this objective. If this means that we break the market, we will break it.
Well, according to gentrification, the colleague of Italy told us that, example from Milan, what we think as trade unionists, but also what the official policy of this town of Vienna is the following. If you want to have a flat, a subsidized flat, a social housing, in a social house, there is a specific threshold, and up to this threshold, you can earn money and you're subsidized. You can get in a social house. And this threshold is, hopefully I have the correct number, but it's just like this, the net income a year for one person who wants to get in a room, or not a room, a flat, is 56,000 euros, net income. Net, not gross, net. And if you have a second person, for instance, you're a couple, it's about 70,000 euros net income. And things like this, and it's up to about 100,000 euros. So what I think is, if you're, let's say, 25 or 30 years old, and you want to have an own flat, and you want to have a subsidized flat, the possibility that you are below that threshold is very high. So this is the one thing, and I think it's a good one, because the thresholds are so high. The other thing is, the official policy of Vienna, at least since let's say, the end of the Second World War, is that we have social houses in each and every center of the town, not just in one or two. And if you're familiar with Vienna, it has 23 districts. And in each and every of these districts you will find social houses. So it's a combination of each and every people which we have in Austria. And not such a, what we call Ghettoisierung, such a segregation of people. It's a mismatch of each and everybody in Austria. So this is what we think a good situation. The examples from common units, we did it in the past, so that you share, let's say, the kitchen, but we also have things just like a small swimming pool. In some of these houses are saunas. You have a common playing ground. You have a common playing room, even for winter days, where it's a big bong table and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, people, at least where I come from, think my home is my castle. Do you know what I mean? So you can offer some common spaces, but you cannot, as a dictator, say, okay, from the 1st of November 2025 onwards, we have common space. This is not, that won't function in that country. My home is my castle. Also, the colleague from Milan told us something about, I think it was you, that the trade-off between special planning. Yeah, we need more houses, but on the other hand, there is less space. For instance, for Greenland, and nowadays all of us think about climate change. This had also something to do with climate change. Because when you build a house somewhere on the periphery, you have to have the infrastructure. That means you have a street. That means you have a supermarket and blah, blah, blah. The whole area of infrastructure. And people who live on the periphery want to go by car to the supermarket on Friday evening. That's the truth. That's just like it works. It's not my thinking. It's just like how it is. But what we think is also in common with the state or the town of Vienna. We want to create a house or want to build a house there where there is public transport, for instance. A tram line, or even a tube. And probably some of you heard about Seestadt, which is on the periphery of Vienna, and the line which goes there goes to the so-called Seestadt. About 10 minutes from here, there is the periphery of Vienna, and there is a tube line, especially for those who are working and living outside. But there is a trade-off between thinking of the environmentally friendly town on the one side and building a new house on the other side, because there is a demand of new houses. As I told you, we have 550,000 people more just in Vienna and 2.2 million more in Austria than 25 years ago. And they want to live somewhere. And this Wohnbaubeitrag, this tax 1%, there's no political discussion about that. But there's also, and this is a good story, each coin has two sides, you know. On the one side, you can have, let's say, those people earning more money have to levy more taxes. Let's say 2%, not 1%. But the other side of the coin is that we don't have a political discussion in Austria, that we don't have the tax. Because if there is, let's say, a right-wing majority, a right-wing majority, probably they would attack that 1%. But nowadays, thanks God, that there is no political discussion about that tax, and this is the good side of the coin. The bad side is, as you told us, why shouldn't people who earn, let's say, 200,000 euros a year pay not 1%, but 1.5%, for instance? And others who earn, let's say, 30,000 euros a year pay 0.55%, for instance. But there's no political, I have never heard something about that. But the good thing of the coin is that there is no discussion about this 1%, so there is money. And this is, at the end of the day, we are better off than other countries. And what also came in my mind, where the money comes from, this is also a wish to Santa Claus from the Austrian trade unions. There should be what we call Wohnbaubank. This is a building association bank, or whatever you call it in English. So there is loads of money from the European Bank of Investment. There is money in Luxembourg. And what we as trade unionists want to have a bank that the money comes from Luxembourg or from Brussels, if you want, is here in Vienna, and then with low interest rates, we can have money from that bank and build houses at the end of the day. This is what we want. And this is what we nearly have in Austria. But you know that there was, a couple of years ago, a government in Austria led by Kurz. And they said no. The finance minister at that time said, oh, there's no need for such a bank. Why do you want to have such a bank? Although there's money from Brussels. But they said no. But we want a bank, so probably we have the chance. There's a new government now, since March this year. Probably they listen to us. And sometimes, there will be a bank, money from Brussels to Vienna with low interest rates, and then we have more money to build houses. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Pour finir, je ne vais pas évidemment répondre à toutes les questions, mais je voulais simplement, avant de finir, mettre en valeur quelques éléments. Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, on a parlé de logement. Quand on parle, et je crois que c'est important, quand on parle de logement, on ne doit pas parler seulement de logement social. C'est une des choses qu'on a vues dans la campagne. Parce qu'une des choses qu'a le modèle, par exemple, à Vienne ou dans d'autres villes, c'est qu'il travaille sur le logement, le droit au logement, pas le droit au logement social. Parce que si on parle de logement social, on rentre dans la guerre entre classes, pas entre les classes, entre la bourgeoisie et les ouvriers, mais entre nous, entre les pauvres. Et je dis pauvres parce qu'ils essaient qu'on perde la dignité, qu'on ait peur de dire qu'on n'arrive pas à la fin du mois, qu'on n'a pas la capacité de payer un loyer, qu'on n'a pas la capacité de réchauffer notre maison. Et ça, même si on ne veut pas le dire, c'est la réalité de la plupart des familles ouvrières dans l'Union européenne. Et c'est pour ça que nous, on a le devoir de le dire, et de dire que la honte, ce n'est pas chez nous, c'est chez les gens qui nous obligent à vivre dans ces conditions. Et tant qu'il y aura une famille qui continue à vivre dans ces conditions, même si on a un bon modèle, on doit continuer la lutte. On a beaucoup d'exemples, et Panayota le disait, envers l'extrême droite. Vous savez qui c'est, les étrangers qui nous font la vie impossible en Espagne? C'est les Autrichiens, excusez-moi la blague, hein. C'est les Allemands, c'est les Anglais. Et c'est vrai, c'est vrai. Ceux qui nous font la vie impossible et qui nous mettent en dehors, comme disait le camarade de Milan, c'est les étrangers des pays riches qui viennent nous virer les ouvriers des centres des villes. Ça ne veut pas dire qu'on doit dire que les Autrichiens ils sont mauvais, que les Allemands ils sont mauvais, que les Anglais ils sont mauvais. Le problème, c'est que c'est les riches qui viennent nous expulser de nos villes. Et il faut le dire. Parce que ce n'est pas un problème les migrants. Les migrants, ils partagent le loyer de merde que j'ai à Madrid avec un autre pauvre comme mes collègues, mes camarades, mes amis, mes voisins. Mais celui qui a une grande maison à Madrid, ben, ce n'est pas un migrant ni un petit ouvrier espagnol. C'est des riches. Et il y a des riches espagnols, évidemment, qui spéculent avec les maisons, comme a très bien expliqué Enrique. Donc, face au discours de l'extrême droite, et je crois que c'est très pertinent ce que disait Panayota, il faut leur mettre la contradiction. Le problème, ce n'est pas la migration, le problème, c'est ceux du Nord qui viennent, dans le cas du Sud, en Espagne, en Italie, je veux dire, mais ça arrive aussi dans les villes. Le problème, c'est les riches qui viennent nous foutre hors de nos villes, non? Et à propos de l'argent, je crois que Merlin a fait une question aussi très importante, parce que c'est pareil. Quand Enrique disait à propos du logement touristique, on peut mettre une taxe sur le logement touristique. Parce que c'est bien, c'est fini, c'est avoir le même exemple que je mettais sur les riches. C'est les multinationales. Et on a les données à Barcelone, à Madrid, dans toutes les villes, à Berlin, à Paris. C'est des multinationales. Il y a des endroits que c'est moins. Mais il y a ces multinationales qui font les logements touristiques. Ce n'est pas des petits propriétaires qui louent, comme ils nous disent en Espagne. Ils nous disent « Ah, mais vous attaquez les petits propriétaires qui louent leur maison. » Non, non, ce n'est pas vrai. C'est des fonds internationaux, c'est des fonds vautours qui achètent des édifices complets et qui louent à des prix affolants pour faire des bénéfices. Évidemment, si on taxe ça et on régularise, il y a de l'argent. Il y a évidemment de l'argent pour intervenir le marché, comme disait Merlin. Et évidemment, aussi, il y a de l'argent de l'Union européenne. Et les fonds de Next Generation, comme disait Enrique, ils ont donné l'argent aux fonds vautours, ils ont donné l'argent aux multinationales. Mais il y a la règle d'austérité qui ne nous permet pas aux municipalités d'investir si on a des dettes. Et donc, évidemment, il y a de l'argent. Et ça aussi, c'est important de le dire. Je sais que le PTB, le PVDDA, vous le faites aussi très bien avec l'armement, avec les dépenses armamentiques, quand vous mettez la contradiction. Et c'est clair aussi. Mais il y a des fonds, et ça, on l'a dit durant toute la campagne du logement, il y a des fonds de l'Union européenne. Et je vais mettre un dernier exemple sur les fonds. La Banque centrale, elle peut mettre les taux d'intérêt à 0% pour les familles ouvrières. Pourquoi la Banque centrale met les taux d'intérêt à 0% pour les entreprises et pour les multinationales? Vous savez d'où vient l'argent de la Banque centrale? Des pays membres. Ce n'est pas les internationales, ce n'est pas les fonds internationaux qui donnent l'argent à la Banque centrale. C'est nous qui donnons l'argent à la Banque centrale. Et alors c'est la Banque centrale qui nous redonne l'argent avec un taux d'intérêt plus élevé qu'on leur a donné. Mais on devient fou. Ils peuvent nous donner l'argent à taux d'intérêt zéro aux familles ouvrières. Pourquoi ils ne le font pas? Je veux dire, c'est des exemples qu'on peut mettre et qui sont pédagogiques, comme bien demandé aussi Merlin, parce que c'est très important. Et pour finir, je crois que ça, comme je disais au début, ce n'est pas une guerre entre pauvres. Ça doit être, sincèrement, dire qu'on n'en veut plus des privilèges de quelques-uns. Parce que le fait que le logement, c'est un droit, c'est évident. Ce qu'ils ont fait, c'est le déplacer. Parce qu'ils ont vu qu'à cause de la croissance des villes, ils pouvaient faire des bénéfices énormes. C'est pour ça qu'actuellement, le logement n'est plus un droit. Eux, ils défendent les privilèges de quelque peu, des élites très concrètes. Et chaque fois, on les voit. Et je crois que l'année 2026, ça peut être une année de victoire. Ça va être difficile. Mais on l'a vu quand Ursula von der Leyen a fait le débat de l'Union européenne. Vous savez ce qu'ils ont dit dans les réseaux sociaux de la Commission? Le logement est un droit. Ça, c'était dans l'intervention. d'Ursula von der Leyen. Pourquoi ils disent ça? Parce qu'ils savent que le sens commun, que les gens ils sont fâchés, ils en ont marre, ils ne veulent pas continuer à vivre comme ça. Et c'est pour ça que maintenant, nous, la gauche, on a des exemples. On a les coopératives ouvrières qui se sont faites en Autriche, en Espagne, en plein d'endroits. On a la force des mouvements sociaux qui ont lutté chaque jour pour éviter des virements dans les logements, des expulsions de logements. On a l'expérience dans chacun des pays. On a la capacité de mettre les alternatives sur la table. Et les gens, le sens commun, les gens, ils savent qu'on ne peut plus tenir comme ça. C'est pour ça qu'on va pouvoir gagner des batailles. Parce qu'il va y avoir de l'argent l'année prochaine. Et je finis avec ça, et comme disait Merlin, l'année prochaine, en 2026, vous allez voir comment la Commission va mettre de l'argent sur la table. Mais c'est à nous de dire cet argent, il va vers les fonds publics, il va vers les gens et pas vers les multinationales. Donc finalement, merci beaucoup à tous. Je crois qu'on peut faire un énorme travail et surtout, si l'année prochaine, c'est une année de lutte, on peut gagner des droits et des droits pour le logement pour toute l'Union européenne et pour la classe ouvrière qui est notre lutte finalement. Merci beaucoup. Pardon, pour finir, parce que sinon j'oublie. Merci aux interprètes. Excusez-moi, j'avais rien dit. Merci aussi aux techniciens qui nous ont aidés toute la journée. Je vous rappelle de rendre les casques de traduction. Et vous avez une soirée aussi des jeunes de ELYN ce soir, si vous voulez aller faire la fête, les gens qui sont jeunes. Moi, je ne vais pas pouvoir, je suis plus jeune. Et surtout, merci aussi à toute l'équipe du Parti de la gauche européenne et du Forum, l'Office qui a fait un travail incroyable ces 2 jours. Il nous reste la 3e, mais merci à tous et à toutes.